I just want to come to you today. We're going to talk a little bit about salvage today. Richie Little, I've worked with the Keyfield Fire Department. I've been here at the Keyfield Fire Department for about 3 years. Got about 20, 22 years in fire service altogether. Uh, Things I'm going to talk to you today is some things that I've seen before and things that really can help and make a difference in the people that you go to help and people you protect. We'll go and get started. Firefighting priorities. We got five. Everybody knows the priorities in the realm of fire service. The first on our agenda is life safety. Of course, that's our life safety and others' life safety. Then we're going to worry about controlling the fire. We can't control the fire in a safe manner. It's maybe something we need to step back and take a different approach to, maybe a defensive fire attack. And the third, of course, is protecting the property. And property is one of the main things we're going to be talking about today is protecting that. Salvage. When we talk about salvage protecting the property and belongings from damage. As you know, firefighting activities creates a lot of damage, a lot of smoke, a lot of water runoff, and a lot of weight things that damage the property. And we do this to save property and reduce damage, aimed at limiting secondary losses from smoke and water damage. So if we can keep from involving another room and keep it tied to just the main body of origin, we want to try and do that as much as possible. The ways we can do salvage is expelling smoke, removing heat, controlling the water runoff, removing water from the building, securing the building after a fire. A lot of times we neglect that. We want to be sure it's nothing that will damage more than during fire operations. We want to try to prohibit any kind of damage after we leave. So we want to cover up broken windows and doors that do that, and also patching the ventilation holes on the roof. If it comes a rainstorm or something, we don't want more damage to occur after we leave than we did when we was there. Protecting the property is our responsibility. Property can be irreplaceable, and or of high importance, of sentimental value. I know everybody's got things in their homes that means more to them than just something you go buy at a store. You can replace a lot of things at a store. You can replace buildings and such as that, but family heirlooms and things that are handed down or pictures, they're irreplaceable. So we want to remember that a lot of the contents in the home are probably more valuable than the home itself. You got computers, and people might have things to work with that they can't go back and get. So objectives in this course, we'll have some objectives to go over. We'll go over the safety precautions needed during salvage. Of course, safety should be our priority on anything we do in the fire service. Anything we ought to keep safety conscious. Go over some tools we're going to use for salvage. We're going to go over some reducing losses from heat and smoke, some steps to protect contents using salvage covers. We're going to talk about salvage covers, and that's one of the bigger tools you'd use in salvage operations. Steps taken to limit water damage, steps taken to stop water flow from the sprinkler heads. Safety, as we talked about before, safety is the biggest concern. Of course, you want to be sure that you have your PPE on. I know I think it's a macho thing to take it off quick, but keep your PPE on and your SCBA on anytime you think there might be some kind of damage in carcinogens or some smoke or something that you don't want to be breathing. And your safety officer, your IC or something will kind of determine that. If there's any questions about it, or if you're thinking it's maybe not time to do it, it's better to be safe than sorry. You want to be aware of structural collapse when you work doing salvage. The things that build houses out of nowadays, we used to worry about the trusses and stuff collapsing with the truss plates and stuff when they exposed to heat. Not only we got to worry about trusses in the roof, we got to worry about floor systems too. They build them out of the same stuff now. So if damage to them floor systems and stuff can happen just as easily as it can to attic. And worry about things falling out from under us or on our head. Heavy objects. We think people have things in their homes, pianos or gun safes or stuff like that. That, along with the damage that might have happened through the fire operations, and that could worry about it falling on the floor up under you. So keep in mind of that. And also, the biggest thing we're going to be doing is adding water to it, because when you think about water, it weighs somewhere around 8 pounds a gallon, and you got nozzles that flow 150 gallons a minute. So it don't take long to get a lot of weight added to the floor. Tools, we're gonna talk about some tools also, used in salvage. They've got salvage covers, which of course we talked about them earlier, box cutters. Uh, When you think about box cutters, you think about what could you use that for, but you could use it for numerous things. Anything you need to cut, maybe some carpet out of the way, or something to get it cut back. Uh, Floor runners, wet dry vacs to remove the water, squeegee the water out of doors and stuff. Submersible pumps and hoses, some sprinkler wedges and stops. When you got a sprinkler activated, whether it's through the fire or accidental, it could be accidental activation. It creates a lot of water, and it's not going to stop until you physically turn it off. Ventilation fans, we use them, in our fire attack a lot of times, but it also aids in salvage to keep it from damaging anything further. And of course, small hand tools. You got hammers and pry bars and such as that you might have to use to, maybe you could use a hammer and a pry bar to tear a hole in a wall to check for extension instead of a big axe to make a smaller hole, because a smaller hole will be easier to patch. Limited damage. We want to think about this when we go into a house. Just like it would be a firehouse, we wouldn't want to tear a whole wall out. You don't have to. So you want to try to keep the smoke and heat out of the uninvolved area, which is isolated to one room of the house. Maybe you can shut the rest of the doors in the rest of the house to keep the smoke from getting in them rooms. Perform rapid ventilation. The quicker you can get the thing ventilated, the quicker it's going to cool off. That can also aid in fire suppression. You can, it helps us too, keep us from getting any kind of undue danger. Salvage covers, you use it to protect the contents. You can cover them or however you need to use them. Floor runners, you can use them to protect the carpets and hardwood floors. A lot of people spend a lot of money on stuff like that nowadays. The hardwood floors are pretty costly. So if anytime we can help protect or preserve their property, we need to try to do that. On the salvage covers, you want to think about the floor below the fire. I mean, it's a multi-story building. You have a one room or on the second floor that's involved. Any water or damage you might do to that, any kind of water that you add to that room is going to leach down and maybe cause a ceiling collapse or water damage at the very minimum on the contents below it. You can move all the contents to the center of the room if you can't get them out of the house in itself. Put a salvage cover over it. Put them all in there and pull them together. Cover all the stuff with it. Put the small objects and pictures in drawers. That'll keep them from getting lost. We know we're in there. We create a lot of mess ourselves by bumping into things and moving things. So any kind of movement could make you lose stuff that ain't put up secure. And of course, lastly, covered with a salvage cover. You can do a shoulder toss or balloon toss, and the different ways you fold it. We'll go over the folding in a minute. Will help you in aiding in that deployment. Prevent water damage. You want to make sure that you don't use more water than you have to. A lot of people will go in there and they'll start spraying before they get to the fire. You want to be sure you put your water at the base of the fire. And turn off the nozzles when you're not using them. If you're not using them, a lot of people leave them running to try to keep the pump cool. A good pump operator will keep the pump cool. We need to worry about preserving it properly. If it's that big a factor, leave it running and stick it out the window. Put the water on the outside so it's not inside the house. Deactivate sprinklers. When the fires, of course, the sprinklers have a key role in fire suppression, and we don't want to cut them off too quick. So, but we want to make sure that the IC or he declares it's okay to do so, and check with him, and then we can use the sprinkler wedges. You got to take 2 wedges and jam it in there to cut off the flow of water, or they make a commercial type sprinkler cutoff. You can cut the system off if you need to. Anytime we can, we need to replace the sprinkler heads. And anytime you replace the sprinkler heads, you want to be sure you put back exactly what come out of it, put back in there. You got different GPMs, you got different heat ranges, you got different types of sprinkler heads. So you want to be sure they are located or should be located in there by the control panel and the valving system and the risers. It should be all in the same room. And it should be placed back in service by qualified personnel. So if you're not trained to do all this work as far as getting it back in service, you need to let somebody know how to do it. Situations which the sprinkler control valve may need to be closed. Maybe you can't get to the sprinkler head, or maybe it's too high, or you don't have a replacement for it, and maybe it's at multiple activations, and you just have no way of cutting them all off. You don't have the resources. You can cut the valve off. Maybe that's the only way you can get it, because we want to maintain that, or limit the amount of damage we do with water. So maybe you can't. It's too many. You want to use bolt cutters. If you don't have a key, they have a chain around the wheel, the cutoff valve. So you may need to cut the chain to get the shut off valve closed. That's it. Anyway, close the zone. If you isolate a zone and leave the rest of it active, do that, because that'll help protect the rest of the building. And then open the drain valve. Of course, they all should have a drain valve where it drains it to the outside, and that'll stop the flow of water and keep it from leaking inside. And right now we're going to kind of go over some salvage cover fold. I'm going to ask the crew chief Austin Jones to come up here and demonstrate it. You got different ways of folding, and this is going to just demonstrate the 2 firefighter fold. First, you want, as the directions say, stretch it out flat and get you a good partner. And I think we've done that already. And you place your one hand on the outer edge of the cover and the other hand a quarter of the way from the edge. And then flip the outside edge 3 inches from the middle. So we want to come in, fold the first one to the middle, about 3 inches off center. Then the second fold will be the same thing. And we're going to do the same thing, keep it back about 3 inches, so you'd have a total of 6 inches between the two. Then we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Just repeat that. And then you'll fold them together, fold the 2 halves together. All right, and then on the next one, and of course this will be one of your skills later on, you're going to pretty much repeat the process and fold it towards the middle and leave a space. And we kind of improvising with this blanket. And then the last step, you fold it together, and that'll be for your 2-person salvage cover fold.
Look good, no. Look good.
But of course, I want to remind you again, that'll be a skill for you to repeat later. Be graded on it. All right, removing the water from the building. You can remove the toilet. If you'll take the toilet off the floor level, that'll make you a big drain that you can push water to. A scupper, you can knock a hole in the wall, an outside wall at the floor level. And if you just knock a hole at the bottom and just kind of take your squeeze and push all the water, that'll be a way of removing water. Water chutes, you can use 2 pipe poles and wrap it up on the edge of the salvage cover and kind of make a little ramp for the water to go out the window. Or a catch-all. That's what we're talking about. Salvage covers can be used multiple ways. Catch-all you can take and fold in the corners, and it makes a bowl. You just put everything in it, catch water and all kind of debris, and then you can take it outside. So that's another way a salvage cover can be used. Other salvage options, you can take the stuff out. If it don't get wet, it don't get hurt. So there's a way to move it out of the property before it even gets damaged. Would be the best way. Move it outside the structure, or maybe to another location. Place vulnerable items in the care of law enforcement. If it's a valuable thing, maybe things that's maybe a wallet or some money or something that's of value, you want to be sure you leave it with somebody that can take charge of it and not have to worry about it. And fire investigators, you might need to talk to them. I know we need to think about it on our mind when we do salvage. Any kind of evidence that may be in the case of a possible arson, we need to be sure and be mindful of that, and maybe let the investigators know they might have to take pictures or such as that before it's moved. So in summary, we're going to talk today. We've talked about protection of property. It's our responsibility, right? Our responsibility. Salvage is a process used to protect property from the effects of smoke and water damage. So that's, if we can protect the people's property from any further damage, and when we get there, that's our key goal. And this includes expelling smoke, removing heat, and preventing any further water damage. Salvage can begin while the fire is being fought. So if you keep it in your mind when you're first make your first initial attack, and think about salvage as far as going through the house and stuff. If you can keep the salvage to the damage to a minimum, that's how we conduct salvage. So I want to thank you today for your time, and see you next time.
Yes, sir.